It was brutal. It wasn't. It sucked, to be honest. We're through it now. It's in the past, so I'm excited to get back out there.
And that was Raiders tight end Brock Bowers, who seems to be back in full swing, and that's really good news for the Raiders. It's good news for Geno Smith. It's good news for Pete Carroll. It's good news for Raider fans. He makes a pretty big difference, and we're going to get into all of that. First of all, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Vegas Nation First and 10, brought to you by the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Vegas Nation and Station Casinos STN Sports. Adam, it feels like we've been gone a little while, a lot going on during the bye week. I was in New York for the NFL owners meetings, got a chance to talk to Mark Davis about what has and has not happened so far this year for the Raiders and where his head space is. You can read that story over at Vegas Nation. But the Raiders are back, and more importantly, I guess most importantly, Brock Bowers is back. And I don't know what that's going to mean for wins and losses, but I would imagine that it's going to at least make the offense look a little bit better. And I would dare say that, for me anyway, it puts a little pressure on Chip Kelly and Geno Smith. And here's why. Sunday, presumably, and we'll see about Jakobi Meyers, how long he stays in, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But you're gonna essentially have a nearly fully, completely healthy offense on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's who the Raiders play on Sunday, short of Colton Miller over at left tackle. There's no reason that this offense should be scoring 14 points a game, playing as bad as they did against Kansas City. Excuses are over if Brock Bowers is on the field and Jakobi Meyers is on the field, which we believe that they will be unless something happens with Jakobi getting traded. I don't think that'll happen before Sunday's game. But it's time to produce and be the offense that everyone thought this offense could potentially be when they put this cast of characters together.
Yeah, and look, if it doesn't, they'll still have the Colton Miller's not here. But it rings a little less true, I think, when you've got some of those guys back and when they're in the mix. And look, it's also not easy to jump back. When you're injured, you don't just come back on the field and you're the same person you were.
Brock Bowers is different.
You work your way back up and get into the field. Well, we thought he was different, going into those games when he played. And he's
not like that, though.
Turns out that he also can be injured, just like
but
can.
I'm saying like
bodies work that way.
People that I talked to said he was pretty dominant during practice, and that's the Brock Bowers that they remember.
Well, it was also against the Raiders defense.
But that doesn't matter. When he's healthy, he's a problem for everybody. And I'm just like literally, to me, if he's like it's not speaking out of school. This offense produced, at least in the passing game, against the New England Patriots when he was healthy, when everybody was healthy. It's the first. They haven't even come close to throwing for 300 yards since then. They did that day. It was their best offensive performance in terms of yards, not necessarily points, but that's a different deal. There were 6 or 7 plays of over 20 yards or more against the New England Patriots. I think there were 9 receivers who caught passes. Across the board in the receiving category, this offense played at a pretty high level. That's the level that it needs to play at. That's the level that it should be playing at. And yes, there were excuses, explanations, whatever you want to call it, from the moment he got hurt until now. If he's healthy, which I think he is, based on what at least who I'm talking to, it should make a big difference. And there's no more excuses for Geno Smith or Chip Kelly.
It should. I will say, first of all, for some reason, and I know the reason, my dad was in town. He wanted to watch some of our podcasts. I watched our post-game podcast in New England, and I went back and I was like, I wonder what we were saying that day. And I said, it was not pretty. It wasn't pretty. The numbers were fine.
The run game was bad.
The run game was
bad. The run game is better off now than it was then.
Even the pass game, I think, had about 2 quarters where they just weren't doing a whole lot. The final numbers looked fine, but I do think there was some choppiness during that game.
Sure.
Of course, Brock went out, late in the third quarter.
It was supposed to be something to build on.
It was. It was something to build on, but it wasn't necessarily pretty.
It looks like a Mona Lisa compared to
it was the best
what it's been.
Best they've been, no question about it. And so you want to get back toward that level. Like I said, I do think Brock is human. I think he's going to be great, but I also think there's a workup. You have to build up back to where you were. I think in with any human being, even the greatest players of all time. Like when you come back from an injury, you've got to get back into the game speed and that sort of thing. I think he'll be better, and he's younger and all those things than most. But there is an adjustment process. So. It's one, but I guess that is to say it's not one they can really afford. Like they've got to hit the ground running right now. I talked about this on the Blitz show this week, but it's a really weird schedule kind of coming up here for the Raiders. They had the bye week, now they've got 2 games in 5 days, and then another mini bye till Monday Night Football. it's not the most daunting schedule in the world. Like Jacksonville is beatable. On the road against Denver, division opponent, anything can happen. Then Dallas at home, their defense is atrocious. So who knows what can happen there? Like you've got 3 games that are at least on paper not unattainable. And this is a big stretch of games for the Raiders. Like they've got to get Brock Bowers back up to full speed. Whatever Jakobi Meyers is going to be, if he's going to be playing, if he's going to be gone, we don't know. But the offense has got to be clicking again because these next 3 games can either mean that there is something to at least look forward to or play for the second half of the season, or the season is officially just over and you're playing out the string. Like these 3 games are going to determine that. And so they've got to be much better. They've got to be more efficient. Health will help.
Here's my question. Take Jakobi out of it, because I actually think there's a pretty decent chance he's going to get traded.
He should be.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're going to get into why. A couple of the reasons why. There's many, but some what I think. Talking to people around the league that is getting an element that's kind of flying under the radar on why they probably really should do that. We'll get into that in the next segment. But what's interesting to me is to see this offense, especially when Colton Miller comes back, but even before then, they should be okay. Even without him. But I'm curious because there's 10 games left, Adam. What the perception could change of, and I'm not sitting here and saying that Geno Smith's not the answer long term. No. He's not. We know that, okay? But for the next couple of years before they find their quarterback of the future, you're going to have to get by at quarterback. And for the Raiders and everybody in that building, they want it to be at a relatively as high level as possible. Let's put it that way. Right now, confidence probably in the staff and probably in Geno Smith from the fans is at is at a season high low, if you went to make a play on words. It could get lower. There's no question about that. But there's the potential over these next 10 games, especially with Brock out there and Ashton doing his thing, of it getting higher. So let's play this game. In 10 games, what do you think is more likely? That the perspective of Geno Smith, at least going into next year as the quarterback, is improved or lowered among the fans
between now and the end of the year?
Yeah, like in terms of, look, if you're a fan of the Raiders, you're going, look, I know he's not the long-term answer, but this is doable. We can compete with with this quarterback. You spend some money wisely, you draft wisely. Let's say forget it. They need to get rid of him right now.
Let's say, first of all, where we are right now, coming off a bye, is that the Raiders are coming off not a bad offensive performance. Let's not sugarcoat it. One of the worst offensive performances in NFL history.
It's the worst I ever saw.
It's statistically one of the worst. Probably one of the 5 worst performances any team has ever put forth on offense.
And by the way, to compound that, and then sat down with Mark Davis in New York. He's like, I'm sitting there going, it's like on both sides, like as bad as it was offensively. And this, I think the defense gets a little bit off the hook here because the numbers just weren't as bad, but they were pretty darn bad as well.
And the Chiefs took their foot off the gas pedal. It could have been worse, but at least the defense made them drive. Like a defensive equivalent of the offensive performance would have been like 7 one-play touchdown drives in a row.
That's how bad it was.
That's just honest. Like that's how bad the offense was.
It's honest and accurate.
So is the perception in the fan base going to be higher or lower on Geno at the end of the year than it is right now? I would say higher. It has to be.
Okay,
it really can't get much lower.
All right, then let me re-ask that question. Could it be at that point where the entire perception changes? Like, okay, all right, for another year, we could work with this for another year. You draft your quarterback or whatever. Between this year's draft or next the draft after that, you find your quarterback of the future through the draft. But right now, everyone wants to get rid of him, cut ties, which I don't know how feasible that is at the end of this year. Yeah. But next year. Do you think there's a chance, at least, that there's okay, all right?
There's a chance. I'll go back to what I said before the year, and I know people hated this, and I know you fought on this too. The worst case scenario for the Raiders this year is that Geno's okay. Mm-hmm. It's the worst case scenario, and I think that now, it's a realistic possibility that he has an okay close to the year, and he's right in that position that I said was a disaster, where he's okay, and just what you're referring to. That can you go into next year saying, maybe he's okay. Like maybe he's good. Like I think that's the worst
What
case
if
scenario.
what if okay
the only
is,
scenarios that worked for the Raiders this year were Geno being unbelievable or very good and taking them to a very high level and saying, hey, this is going to work the next 2 or 3 years with potentially competing. Or he was just so bad they're like, all right, we have to figure out a way to move on. Like that was the two best case scenarios. Right now, I think it's closer to the second one, obviously. I do think he's more than capable of putting together the kind of close to the season where you're like, all right, maybe you can go one more season with him. And I do think that's really, really
you might
bad.
have to, first of all.
It's bad for the franchise going forward.
Well, I mean, that depends on what happens in the draft. You
Sure.
know, like you can't just magically conjure up a quarterback that you're going to build
And
around.
I don't think it's a very good quarterback class. So
I was talking to an NFL general manager just 2 days ago, and I was like, "What's this quarterback class shaping up as?" And it was meh, and then followed by, "We don't have a first-round grade on any of these guys." Now, that's not to say that guys can't rise up over the next, few weeks or whatever, or a
I
month.
think Ty Simpson is coming on pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
He looks pretty good. I think, Mendoza looks like number one right now. I wouldn't be excited to have the number one pick.
Right.
If I needed a quarterback right now and Mendoza was going to be the guy, I don't think I'd be necessarily thrilled about that. So it's not the right year to need a quarterback in the draft. That's for sure.
Right. What if good? I'm asking you this so many different ways. What if good Geno is good enough to lose a bunch of shootouts? You know what I'm saying? Like where the offense is like,
Sure. It's entertaining, but you lose, and that's ultimately good for the franchise. I mean, I think that is the
ideal,
slam dunk, over the top, best case possible scenario. That you lose a bunch of games like 51-48.
Okay.
I don't see that happening. But I think that's the best case scenario right now. We're like, hey, the offense is explosive, it's very good, but you're losing games to keep yourself in a good draft position. Like, that's fantastic. Although, now we'll say again, like if you are the dreamer, the ultimate dreamer out there, like is there a possibility they win these 3 games in whatever is 18 days and they're right back in the mix? Like, sure.
If that happens, then you got to readjust.
Right.
Like right now, where my headspace is, I'm going off of what I've seen through 7 games, all right? And especially last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, where I don't care who would have been out on the field that's on the roster, that's in the building right now, healthy or not. There's nothing Brock Bowers could have done, Colton Miller could have done, or Jakobi Meyers could have done to change the outcome in that game. It may have not have been, the butt whooping that it turned out to be, but there were 2 different teams. Levels of team. There was the Kansas City Chiefs level, and there was the Las Vegas Raiders level.
Lower that hand a little bit.
Exactly. Well, I'm trying to keep it in the frame, I guess. But I guess we're here. So here's the other question I have. How important are the next 10 games for the future, maybe of a Chip Kelly?
I think very important. I don't think there's any question. If the offense gets guys back and gets guys healthy and continues to play like this, I think it'd be very tough to go into the offseason and try to figure out where you are. And if you can't, by the way, if you go into an offseason where there's not a high-level quarterback prospect you want, there's not a free agent quarterback that you want to sign, and you have to come back with some kind of combination of Geno Smith, Kenny Pickett, Aiden O'Connell now coming back in the mix. Like if it's some combination of them that you're coming into the season with next year, like you've got to make changes somewhere. So I mean, that's just the reality of the NFL world. And so if I'm Chip Kelly, I'm looking around saying, they're not changing the quarterback, probably not changing the head coach. Where do I stand? So I think that's just the reality of the NFL world.
What would be your, I guess we're going to have to see it for 10 weeks, but what would be your justification for saying, Chip, it's not working, goodbye? As opposed to, Chip, we gave you a deck of cards that just wasn't very strong. We still believe in you, and we believe if we give you the right players, this can still work.
My guess is that Geno Smith, just as the guess, and there's some educated guess to it, but just a guess that Geno Smith was not the first choice of Chip Kelly. And I imagine that Chip Kelly was saying, I don't know that that's the ideal scenario for me to come into for Raiders with Geno Smith being my quarterback. And I'm sure at the end of the year, if the offense is still like this, he will say, I told you.
Well, they did go after Matthew Stafford.
They did go after Stafford. But I think what he would say is, like, it wasn't my guy. That's not my offense. It doesn't look, it didn't look right with him necessarily running it. Like, I need my quarterback in here. But again, I guess the point that I'm making is, you've got to change something on offense. If it continues like this,
right.
Things will change. If it continues like this, something has to be done on offense. And if you can't change the quarterback, and you're not going to change the head coach, like that just becomes the logical approach. Now, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure he would make the case of let me run this offense the way I want to run it with a quarterback that I choose. But that's not the reality all the time.
Not only that, and this opens up a whole other line of questions of, okay, whose decision was it to bring in Chip Kelly to begin with? I just, at least people that I talked to, not so sure that was a Pete Carroll hire more than a Tom Brady hire.
I'm sure that, again, we're operating on the assumption that the season continues like this, and that's not necessarily a fact.
Exactly.
If the season ends like this, there's going to be a lot of people after the season behind the scenes saying, hey, that wasn't my guy. That wasn't my guy.
Right.
I would have chosen a different head coach. I would have chosen a different GM. I would have chosen a different offensive coordinator. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of that behind the scenes. It's not going to be public, of course. They're too professional for that, but I think you definitely see some of that for sure. I mean, that's what happens in losing organizations. That's just the fact. And it was a marriage that was put together. Like, it wasn't, when we had here in Vegas, you had Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler come in, like they were together. They were a pair. Like, this was kind of an arranged marriage in a lot of ways.
It was
between the OC, the GM, and
John Spytek was always going to be here.
Right.
Spytek was always going to be the general manager, regardless of who the coach was. And remember, the first coach that they pursued heavily and pushed it as far as they possibly could was Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
So, who's kind of the polar opposite of Pete Carroll in terms of longevity, age, all of those types of things. Like Ben Johnson, John Spytek, and this is not taking anything away from Pete Carroll. I think he can coach. But when you're talking about lining up visions, that's the ideal vision right there. Would have been a young coach with a young general manager, first-time general manager that had a shared vision. I'm not saying that John Spytek and Pete Carroll don't share the same vision. There's probably a lot of elements that they do agree upon, but there is a different timeline there.
Yeah, the timeline is the biggest thing, and that's something that we talked extensively about this offseason. Nothing really. It was a square peg round hole kind of thing for me that I thought that they were trying to put together. And also interesting that we're talking about this because this week there is a coach on the other side, Liam Cohen, who I thought would absolutely be part of a John Spytek plan. Coming from Tampa Bay, coming out of the same system. He wasn't there for very long, but he was down there. And, for whatever reason, it seemed like Liam Cohen wanted to go to Jacksonville. I think it was part of the reason that Ben Johnson wanted to go to Chicago.
A quarterback.
They had young quarterbacks in place there. And that's why those coaches wanted to go to those places. So
all the more reason why you got to go draft somebody that becomes post Pete Carroll, whatever that might be. That becomes a magnet. Say what you want about Jared Goff, but Sean McVay, one of the hottest, offensive coordinator assistants that year, along with Kyle Shanahan, came to the Rams because he wanted to work with Jared Goff, where that was he was the 2016 number one pick. So that becomes a magnet for good head coaches.
Yeah.
A good young quarterback. So a lot of interesting things to happen, first and foremost. And if you're talking about looking at things from a granular level, Pete Carroll wants to win this game. He wants to get this thing back on the right track. He doesn't want to wave any white flags. He still, wants to win as many games as possible. But there's a player that can help him win those games that may or may not be here beyond next Tuesday. We're going to get into that in 1 second and why it makes some sense beyond just we're going to get into why it makes a sense for that player to get traded at the deadline. Before we do that, I want to remind everybody, you guys spoke real loud and clear, and we heard you guys loud and clear. You wanted a discounted version of Vegas Nation, a digital subscription to Vegas Nation, and we heard you loud and clear. So if you go to mylvrj.com/nation, that's mylvrj.com/nation, you can get a digital subscription for Vegas Nation, which covers everything Raiders related 24/7 throughout the year. You could get the next 3 months for one whole quarter, a quarter for a subscription to Vegas Nation. Just go to mylvrj.com/nation for that offer. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit of trade deadline, which is actually less than a week away.
As far as wanting to be traded? Yeah. Oh, for sure. But I'm saying, I'm a professional at the end of the day. I'm just trying to play good football. So at the end of the day, if I'm here, like I said, I'll play good football. If I'm not here, I'll go out there and play wherever I'm supposed to be. If I'm here, I'm here. If I'm not, I'm not. Wherever I'm at, I'm trying to get healthy and play good football. That's really all it is.
That was Jakobi Meyers, the Raiders wide receiver, who reiterated during the bye week his desire to get traded. Now, just for some context, this is all about money. Jakobi Meyers wanted a new contract. He's in the last year of his contract, the 3-year deal that he signed a couple of general managers and head coaches ago, by the way. That was the Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler regime that brought in Jakobi Meyers. They were Josh was his offensive coordinator in New England. Dave Ziegler at the time was kind of the quasi-assistant general manager. They bring him to Las Vegas 3 years ago in 2023. So now he wants a new contract. It feels like he's earned a new contract. The Raiders are like, not so fast. So he's asked for his trade. The Raiders said, we hear you, but we're not trading you. Fast forward now, a week or so before the trade deadline, Adam asked him if he still wants to get traded, and the answer is yes.
It was for sure.
For sure. Right. And so
but he also said he hasn't gone back to the team, which I thought was interesting, that he's saying, look, I'm not going every week saying trade me, trade me, trade me. Now his family might be wearing outfits that say trade him to the game, pay him or trade him. But he's not going back every week and saying trade me. He said they know where I stand. He's like, I'm not going to go cry about it. They're going to trade me or they're not.
Right.
And that's how it's going to be. Like he's not trying to make waves. Like if you're out there saying, he's doing this in the media, it's causing a distraction. Like that's not really the case. He talked about it before the season. We asked him again. Like it's just been twice. He's not going back to the team every week. He's saying they understand, and that's Jakobi's MO. Like he's a team guy. He's a great locker room guy, great blocker, does everything, all the dirty work that you want out of a receiver. Also happened to have a very productive season last year, catching passes, which is kind of why he thinks he deserves to get paid. Mm-hmm. The team seems to disagree, and so they've been at that stalemate. And so, will they trade him? I think they will for a couple of reasons. It hasn't happened yet, and it's not a sure thing to happen.
Right.
But I do think it should happen.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, was having a conversation with somebody that has worked with Jakobi Meyers, and he's like, look, you alluded to it, he's a professional. He's a great guy, great kid. You know that he's going to be 100% professional about this, and has been. That said, as somebody told me, look, as nice as he is and as great as a human being as he is, when your heart's not in it, your heart's not in it, and it's call it a mind game, whatever. But it's hard to play your best and to give your best and to give your all the way you would if your heart was in it compared to when your heart's not in it. That's number one. Number two, I think
that goes with any job, though. Just to say it, like if you've had like 2 really good years at work, and you're like, at this point, I think they're gonna give me a raise or a bonus or a promotion, and like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think even if you're still the most professional person and you go to work every day and try to grind out the work, like there's going to be a part of you that's like, do they even care?
Yeah.
Do they even care? And so I think that's part of it.
Right, and it's a good point because I know fans sometimes like to get on their soapbox sometimes, and like you gotta put yourself in his shoes, in your job, in your line of work, and if you say that, no, I would never think about it. I'm calling you a liar.
Yeah, probably a liar.
You're probably a liar.
That's cap.
Yeah, there you go. So there's that number one. Where if you're the Raiders, do you want a player that in your heart of hearts, his heart's not in it? Number one. Number two, go look at where the Raiders are salary cap wise next year and their spending power. Their salary cap as of today, if projected to next year, is at $115 million. That's the space that they're going to have to work under the projected salary cap for next year. That's second most in the NFL. Even more importantly than that, if you look at how much cash they're spending this year, it's $289 million, right? As of right now, they're committed to $139 million. You do the math on that; that's a lot of cash, right?
Yeah, sure.
So if you're saying, okay, if you're Mark Davis, you're going to have another $289 million in cash to work with next year. That's a lot of cash to be able to spend. So the Raiders are going to spend money next offseason. They almost have to by rule, first of all. But as a practical, deal, they're going to have to because there's holes that we can already see on this roster. They're going to have cap space, plus it's going to line up with their cash. Even if you just spend to the cash if you go cash to cap, they're gonna have to spend a lot of money. All right, why is Vinny talking about this? Because of this. Right now, the presumption is, all right, you could do this. You can handle this two ways if you want to get something back for Jakobi Meyers. You could trade him now and get a draft pick for next year, or maybe even a player, but let's just say a draft pick for the 2026 draft, all right? Which both of us agree it's probably either going to be a 4th or a 5th round pick. It maybe there's an outside chance.
Sounds like they want a 3rd.
It's no question. They want a 3rd. Will they get a 3rd? That depends on a lot of different things, including the desperation of the team that's trading for him, because he's also going to be, if he plays on Sunday, a 9-week rental for somebody. So you have to take that into account. So let's just say it's a 4th pick, a 4th round pick that you get for the 2026 draft. Or do you hold on to him, try to win a bunch of games this year, let him leave in free agency, and then get a comp pick for the 2027 draft, which would probably be right around where, like a 4th round pick, let's just say. I don't think he's going to be a 3rd round pick guy in free agency based on the contract that he's going to sign after this year with another team. But that's not a guarantee that they get that compensation, that draft pick, comp pick. Why? Because of what I just said. This is all a math game. And so if the Raiders spend a lot of money in next year's free agency period, which we believe that they will, that the who they sign, how many players they sign, and the money that they spend could negate.
Will negate.
Will negate. Yes, right.
It's so essentially
they won't get a comp pick for him.
The compensatory pick formula. It's just that. It's a formula. It's based on how much you spend and how much you lose in free agency. So if you're just saying it's not a straight up, hey, if they lose Jakobi Meyers, they get a 3rd or a 4th round comp pick. That's not the case. It's how many guys do you sign, how many guys do you lose, and what is the quality and level of those players based on the contract they sign. And so it's not a 1-for-1. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't get a comp pick for every guy that you lose. Right. It's all right. You signed 7 guys in free agency. You lost 4, and that's obviously
just think of last year, like how many players they lost.
That's what it is, right? So that's why you get compensatory picks. So it's not a 1-for-1, just direct thing. Like I think a lot of people have kind of talked about and said, well, you get a comp pick, just hold on to them. Like that's not the case. It's not how it works. They're very unlikely, I would say, to get a compensatory pick.
Unless they don't spend money.
Because they're going to spend money. Right. So I don't think they're going to get a comp pick if they hold on to them. So you have to do that. And I've made one other point on this, which it's not a direct thing. It's more of an abstract thing. But, like, there is something about, quote-unquote, treating players right. Mm-hmm. Like, Jakobi Meyers has done everything for this organization that they've asked him to. He clearly wants out. Like, you can hold on to him, but players do talk. Agents do talk. And they're like, hey, the Raiders are the team that didn't need him, held on to him, didn't pay him. They didn't want to pay him, but they also didn't want him to go somewhere else. And they kind of held him against his will for half of a season.
Well, and
like that does get around, and that does matter.
Yeah. How do I word this? There's an understanding of why that is from all principles. So there's not even any hard feelings on that. It's like the person I talked to is like, I do the same thing. You know, because if you're the Raiders right now, what you're trying to do is drive up a market for him, and the longer you hold on to him, the more you're potentially maximizing the return. Because come Tuesday, when all the dust finally settles, there might be a team out there, the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's say, that need a complimentary second wide receiver. They seem to be, pushing the door for potential division championship and definitely playoffs. Maybe they just say, look, you know what? We'd love to have our 3rd round pick in 2026. We know that Jakobi's probably just a rental here. But, man, you put him alongside, DK Metcalf with Aaron Rodgers in our run game. We're going to just go ahead and kiss goodbye to the 3rd. You might be able to get it to that point. And the only way you find that out really is by pushing it as far as you can. So that's why if you're asking, well, why haven't they traded him before? Number one, they haven't gotten an offer that they feel is worthy of that. Number two, they're just going to play it out as long as they possibly can to try to drive up the market and create a bigger market so you have competing teams and maybe get closer to what you want to compensate.
I think once the season has started and once we're into this point, that's absolutely, you have to hold on to them as long as you can to get the pick you want. I think that's absolutely true. I think the counter would be, you clearly miscalculated your team. He should have been traded before the season. That should have happened. Some people said that. But I just think because you've waited too long, because you miscalculated, you thought your team was going to be better than they were, now you've put yourself in a position to have to wait. I think you probably could have got a better deal for him before the year.
Yeah, fair enough.
Probably when you should have traded him.
Yeah, it's such, and that's again when you hire somebody like a Pete Carroll, there's going to be like over my dead body. You're not trading away one of my best players.
I'm gonna have a good team.
Yeah,
I need that guy. We're gonna succeed, and that was just a miscalculation of what this team was.
Right there you go. And so that's sometimes the calculations that you make. along the way, and all the more important for everybody to be in lockstep on what. I was talking to a general manager of a team that's really bad right now, and the whole thing was like, we suck. But everybody in the building understands that.
Right.
And everybody in the building from the top right on down understands what the challenge is here, what we need to do, what the right approach should be. And there's no, differing of opinions. And from the coach, and, they're going to be looking for a coach, let's put it that way. But you know what I'm saying? Like you have to have that. It's the only way. Otherwise, there's all this type of stuff that might be going on, probably is to some extent with the Raiders, in terms of the timelines of the people that are involved.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to be back tomorrow. It's a little bit of a weird schedule for us coming off the bye week.
Lucky you guys.
But we will be back on Friday to really dig into this matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do not think this is going to be an easy game whatsoever for the Raiders. So we'll talk about that a little bit on Friday. I want to thank you guys for. I know I got a lot of text messages from some of you guys that have my phone number, but also DMs and emails. Where's the podcast? We were on the bye week. Thanks for thinking of us. We truly appreciate that. Thanks for always supporting us. We definitely appreciate that. Don't forget, mylvrj.com/nation. Go sign up for the next 3 months of a digital subscription to Vegas Nation for a whole quarter, 1 quarter for the next 3 months. It's a great deal. Tell your friends, gift it, whatever you want to do. Continue to hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube page. We really appreciate it. I want to say thanks to the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Station Casinos STN Sports for all of their support. I want to say thanks to Heidi Feng for everything that she does. Until tomorrow, enjoy your Thursday. Get ready. Get those costumes ready because it is Halloween tomorrow.
Are we dressing up for the podcast?
No. We will not be doing that as much as maybe we want to, but no, we weren't gonna do that to our audience.
It'll be fun.
Maybe. All right. We'll talk about it. Who knows? Tune in tomorrow to find out. Thank you, and check you guys out on Friday.